Hello, good afternoon everyone. How are we doing? It seems quite warm in here by comparison to outside, so thank you for braving the chilly London day today, and thank you to those at home joining us from the comfort of their bedrooms all around the world. ITC very quietly turned 28 years old earlier this month. This is our 9th annual Cyber Summit event. This is where we bring together on an annual basis friends, partners, colleagues, peers, people from the industry. Some competitors even sometimes sneak in and join us for a conversation, but it's about building the ecosystem of cybersecurity, not just in the UK, but globally, and helping strive towards our mission of making the digital world a safer place to do business. My message is you're amongst friends. Please share openly, network freely, and together we will make the digital world a safer place to do business. You've got an excellent lineup coming up straight after me today. The team will be taking you through, or our team of panelists will be taking you through the lay of the land as it is around us and right now, but also the daunting task of what may lie ahead. Some predictions, some forecasts, and hopefully give you some insights into what else you could or should be thinking about to secure your business going forward. And we'll have also, in our team of panelists, built together quite diverse lenses through which we will look today. Geopolitical risk, big cybersecurity technology, and also from the coalface of being a Chief Information Security Officer at a top-tier global bank. So hopefully those will be interesting perspectives for you to talk through today. I have the much less daunting talk of looking backwards and not having to make predictions going forward, but we have to look at what we predicted and what we set out when we were here a year ago would be our top topics and areas for focus last year. Our theme, as Mark outlined last year, was beyond. Look beyond the crisis that we are in, look beyond the panic stations that we did in order to continue to operate, to continue to survive, the decisions we had to make quickly to support our business. Look beyond that for when we will eventually get to some steady state. What does it look like and where do we need to be? One of the key areas that we identified, and I think unfortunately is going to be back in this year, is around our supply chain. We've seen in recent years supply chain not just compromised by accident, but specifically targeted. SolarWinds back in, I think was it 2020 when that was disclosed, we seem to not have yet picked that up again. And we're seeing a lot of organizations we work with think about supply chain as physical suppliers to them, providers providing a service or a product. Logical, makes sense, I can figure out my supply chain. What we've seen last year is big technology solutions that are in our supply chain that are supporting our business being targeted and compromised. Some examples to name a few: Okta, that is used widely for identity and access management. The identity we use to log on to our systems suffered a big breach. The two of the largest, if the lawyers are in the room, web hosting platforms, WordPress and Magenta, that many of organizations use to host our businesses, our e-commerce sites on, were compromised, not in their own right, through their own supply chain. Their supply chain affecting them, affecting us. Hackers went even further, from identity to controlling some of our platforms to actually getting access to our code that our developers are writing by targeting and compromising GitHub, a very popular global code repository. And as Mark Goodman, a technology author, says in his best-selling book, Future Crimes, if you control the code, you control the world. In our supply chain, those will have dramatic impacts for us going forward. There's one thing we all know in the room, and that's that the cost of everything has gone up. The cost of insurance has gone up, and specifically, cyber insurance. In the US, as an example, their cyber insurance year on year has gone up by 80% on average. Now, when we stood here last year, we actually pointed out cyber insurance as an industry that may actually be in trouble. That had some insurmountable challenges as they try to figure out how to quantify a risk, write policies, and seize on this big new opportunity in the insurance space. But we all, at the same time, suffering increased breaches, high cost of breaches, increased amount of ransomware specifically, have been crippling a lot of the insurance industry's cyber practices. And indeed, what we've seen is maturing of cyber insurance in the industry. They've standardized how they will go about underwriting their underwriting standards. They are mandating controls alongside the policies that they're writing. They're putting in place system checks and enhanced monitoring. we see that as an evolution and a maturing of the cyber industry as a whole, which is tough for security budgets for those who weren't expecting it, but it's needed. The cyber insurance industry is needed to be sustainable and be successful because insurance is a key part of risk management and therefore our overall cyber risk management too. We all stood here and expected that ransomware would play a big part. I certainly did not expect to be standing here telling you that, or reminding you that 2022 was the year that ransomware actually took an entire country offline. The country of Costa Rica was pretty much offline for 2 whole months. Healthcare, insurance, tax, social care, hospitals, all taken out in a very targeted, organized crime attack to destabilize and ultimately extort money from the country. It took the country 2 months working with our friends at Microsoft, the USA, Israel, and Spain to recover from that. Now, and this is the first time since 2007 that we've actually seen, when Estonia was attacked, we've actually seen a country brought to its knees and disrupted by cyber attack. This one now, the more modern version of that in the area of ransomware. And the ransomware directly linked to the rise up in cyber insurance. And the ransomware nature, both in targeted attacks and in indiscriminate attacks, we continue to see being a key trend increasing going into the new year. Some positive news is that 2022 was the year that the most cyber criminals were identified and brought to justice ever. Now, most of those court cases and actual prosecutions were linked to fraud. So a very traditional way of thinking about crime. Crime is committed, there's a loss, there's a person responsible for that. But this is a massive step forward. This is a massive step forward for a world where it was assumed that cyber attacks were anonymous, that you could sit in your bedroom somewhere in the world and attack any organization anywhere and get away with it, and that it was easy to get away with. That is changing. We have a long way to go, but that is changing. That is a big positive development, and that's also a big positive input that we've seen from the likes of Microsoft to the publishing of their digital defense report. It's easy for me to say. That we'll be talking more about later today. But also some of the other reports that Microsoft released throughout the year last year, I think we thought were very interesting about actually putting the attribution of nation-state attackers on a more real-time basis. If you haven't seen it, look into the reporting series they did around protecting the Ukraine during the cyber war. I think it's really some groundbreaking research and attribution that happens in those reports that has been pushing that trend to get to attribution and hold criminals accountable. We mentioned that regulatory changes are going to continue to be something that businesses need to think about. We maybe missed our prediction of a year, but the SEC have just recently released their proposed changes to rules and guidelines for financial services and asset managers. This is going to be a significant step up. For those who haven't been doing it, it's going to be a significant investment to focus on it. But what they're really trying to do is standardize how cyber risk is managed inside these organizations, standardize governance and strategy linking to that, and standardize how incidents are responded to or disclosed, actually more than the response internally. So we believe these are all things for the good, but it does place an overhead on organizations to ensure they're thinking about it and implementing it. The UK government last year released their digital defense strategy report too. This was their first report since 2016. So it was a significant amount of research and consultation from industry that went into it. And if you haven't read it, I would strongly recommend that you do. But I thought what was interesting was it actually came out and admitted and said it's difficult to quantify or price, is the word they use, I think actually, the impact of a cyber attack. So we understand that it's difficult for you as business to sometimes understand what is appropriate. Where should I spend my resources? So I think that's some really good insights coming from that standpoint and that sort of admission of challenge that you have as organizations to how do you take that forward? How do you manage that risk in a sensible way, particularly when, as Mark mentioned, there's additional pressure on spending and budgets going forward. Their three-point strategy, which I like because it actually takes it back to basics, and also fits very nicely with our theme about having moved beyond, now reframing the conversation. The three things they say you do is, one, build your business case for investing in cyber, specifically including cyber insurance and training. Sounds basic, but when we were in a time of of crisis and having to keep our business operating, decisions being made quickly, impulsive. We need to take a step back from that and put a bit more planning, rigor, and structure around how we think about cybersecurity. So cybersecurity fits into the overall business. Point number 2 was put cyber risk on your business risk register. Consider it like all of your other risks. And then the third point is build evidence of your efforts you're putting into cybersecurity, specifically in preparation for having to disclose it to an external party one day. They're saying assume breach. Do what you can, measure risk, and plan for when it inevitably may very well go wrong, so that you mitigate the impact of that either by having the right controls in place so the attacker does less, having the right insurance in place, and not having additional challenges or problems from your regulator. But fundamentally, I think what they're saying there is stop thinking about cyber as this really difficult, complex thing that sits outside of all of how we treat the rest of our business. Put cyber in with how we think about the rest of our business and manage it like a risk across our business, which I thought was quite helpful, but ground findings too. The other thing we said, and that was evident, was the challenge that organizations are facing with the continued trying to secure hybrid working. Again, moving from a scenario where everybody had to work from home or work remotely into now this hybrid situation, different technologies coming together, quick decisions have been made. What is our long-term solution, our long-term strategy for that? And then we've really been seeing identity coming up at the core of how we manage hybrid secure working. Identity doesn't just apply to people, identity applies to devices too, but having an identity-based security strategy, I'm trying to steer away from all the buzzwords, but a zero trust architecture or a model, and if you're not adopting it, at least considering it, and seeing how that plays through in your product choices, your technology, your services, your training for your employees. And what they've realized as part of that focus on that zero trust, is actually that what they value is simplicity. What they value is integration. You're going to get the best protection, the system's going to work together, you're going to get the quickest response, you're going to mitigate the cyber attack best if all of your parts of your ecosystem play nicely together, to put it bluntly. Try not to just quote Microsoft reports, but a Microsoft report recently said that the average company, and they measure an average company as having 1,000 employees as a global average. The average company has 73 different cybersecurity products and even more cybersecurity vendors that they have to manage inside their ecosystem. From our experience of working at the coalface and helping organizations with those solutions, it becomes unmanageable. It becomes a very manual, and that ultimately increases the impact the cyber breach can have on your business. So therefore, going for a more consolidated, integrated solution with a service wrap around it, we see has a much bigger impact, a positive impact. And again, this is our view, our perception from the coalface, but the evidence is there in Microsoft's results too. Microsoft recently published their security-related revenue from last year. It's now topped $20 billion, growing 33% year on year, and having grown 100% since 2020. This is not a Microsoft sales pitch, please. Maybe it's mistaken, but it's not. It's just about what can we learn from that? What is the indication? That means that organizations are going to a platform approach. Organizations are aiming to do more with less. And the need to wrap services around that, they can actually bring budgets and spending down, have a more simple and a more effective cybersecurity strategy in place too. What we saw there as well in that learning is that is actually challenging one of the cybersecurity strategies that many of us have held at very dear to our hearts, and that's going with a best-in-breed strategy. I'll select the best vendor there, the best product there, and having this best-in-breed product strategy is now becoming a challenge for organizations as they go forward, as they look to integrate more. And that's where the Microsoft solution has done very well to be able to help them enhance protection, get greater visibility, and increase response times by having that integrated, seamless solution and do more with less. Over at ITC, our business looks very different to what it did 28 years ago. But we believe that we're in a very good place to continue to achieve our mission of making the digital world a safer place to do business. What we've seen is the continued convergence of secure networking into modern day cybersecurity, the need to look at identity and how all these things fit perfectly with our heritage and our legacy knowledge that we have in those areas. It really puts us in a very unique position to be able to support organizations going forward. And we've been able to see that in our business, in our results. As an organization, we grew our cybersecurity services revenue by 40% last year. We signed a record number of new customers into our 24-hour operations center, which is based out of Canary Wharf here. And we've invested all of those proceeds and all of that growth and doubled down on our strategy back into the business by growing out our teams, building out our capabilities, and launching new services to extend coverage and protection for our customers. And really, none of that is possible without you. So I want to conclude there by saying thank you very much for your support. Thank you for your support today, but also on an ongoing basis. We welcome your input, your feedback, and really we can't get to our strategy of making the digital world a safer place to do business without you. So thank you very much.